Hi you guys, I am ready for lesson 2 of module 17. I am on page 443 in our math workbook, so make sure you have that and a pencil. Today's lesson is called Estimate and Measure Mass. So this is all about measuring objects, the weight of objects, and using different units for different sized objects. And just like the lesson 1, where we weren't really doing exact measurements, we were kind of just learning about volume and using common sense and just trying to be logical about it. That's kind of what we're going to do today with the with measuring mass, because we don't have an exact scale and we're just learning about the units and being able to estimate things. So our I can statement says I can use metric units to estimate and measure the mass of objects. So we're going to learn about the metric units. We're going to be able to estimate the weight of objects, and part of that is having a scale, comparing things, and then we can use our best judgment. So let's get started with the Spark Your Learning. It says, Ronan packs his backpack for school. Today he has a book, a folder, a paperclip, and an apple to pack. Compare the objects using a pay and balance. Make a drawing for each comparison. How can you describe the ways in which the objects compare to one another? So a pay and balance, that's the one, there's like a kind of a little picture of it on your math workbooks, this little thing. So I don't have one of those, and so we're just going to do our best of comparing them. So I have a book and a folder, an apple, and I couldn't find a paperclip, and so I just got a safety pin from Sewing Kit. So we're going to compare all of these objects, and if we were using a pan scale, we would put one object on each side of the scale and see how they compare. So we'll just get started. So here's my paper folder. If I hold this and the book, okay, so the book is much heavier than the folder, but not by too much. And so that would be my first observation. So I could write that down. And it says to draw a picture. So I would do like, draw a little model of the scale, the pan scale. And so I would do like, something like this. So if it's heavier, it's gonna drop down low. And so the book was heavier, so the book is down here. And I'm just gonna write book. And then the folder was up here. It was lighter. So I'll write folder like that. Okay, easy enough. And then I'll just say the folder is lighter than, because we're comparing, lighter than the book. Okay, and call it good for that. So now let's compare maybe the folder, or the book and the apple. Okay, so here they are. Oh, that's much closer. I'm gonna say, I don't know. I'm gonna say the book is still heavier, but not by much. So these ones are a lot closer. So when I draw my scale, I'm gonna kind of hold them both at almost the same spot. But the book is going to be slightly heavier. See that? So then I could say the book is barely heavier than the apple. So you can draw what I'm drawing, or you can do your own comparisons and find a folder, paperclip, apple, and a book, and do your own comparison, because maybe you have a heavier book or a lighter book. So now I'll do maybe the apple and the paperclip, which is really a safety pin. Okay, so this one, the apple is much, or it'd go this way. the apple is much heavier than the paperclip. The paperclip hardly weighs anything. And same with the paperclip and the folder. Ooh. Right? So the folder is probably a little bit heavier than the paperclip, but they both don't weigh a lot, and so they'd be close to the same at the bottom. So then I would draw that comparison and write it out. So you can do what I did, or you can do it on your own and write about your comparisons. All right. Next page. The build understanding. It says, look around the classroom for the items listed in the chart. Estimate the mass of each object. Then use a pan balance, gram masses, and kilogram masses to measure the mass of each object. So we have two new vocabulary words, gram and kilogram. So let's go over to our vocabulary box and read about it. So it says mass, that's another one of our words. Mass is the amount of matter in an object. Metric units for measuring mass are gram and a kilogram. So 1 kilogram equals 1,000 grams. So grams are smaller. We need a lot of grams to make a kilogram. And that's going to help us later on. So it has this list of items that we can measure, and we're going to go through and estimate the mass of each object, and then we're going to measure it. We're not going to measure it exactly because I don't have a scale, but I have my teacher book that has the answers, so we'll just use that. Okay, here we go. So the 3-hole punch. So a 3-hole punch is that thing that punches the holes in the paper. I'd say that's pretty heavy. I would say that is maybe 2 kilograms. I'm gonna guess 2 kilograms. Okay, and then the eraser, that's gonna be much lighter. I'm gonna guess like 10 grams. And then the paper clip is going to be much lighter than the 3-hole punch and the eraser. I'm going to say that's only 1 gram. The stapler, maybe that's 1 kilogram, right? It's lighter than the 3-hole punch. The pen, maybe, well, if I said the eraser's 10 grams, the pen's going to be close to the eraser. 5 grams? The pencil's probably going to be close to the pen, so I'll say 4 grams. And then the ruler, maybe 3 grams. I don't know. Let's go ahead and look at, oh boy, my guesses were a little bit off, but that's okay. That's how we learn. Okay, the 3-hole punch is 1 kilogram. These are the answers from the book. 1 kilogram. The eraser is 5 grams. That wasn't that off. The paper clip is 1 gram. We got that one. Yay. Okay, and then the stapler is 500 grams. Okay, that makes sense because the 3-hole punch is 1 kilogram. So that makes sense that the stapler would be 500 grams. The pen is 15 grams. Gosh, I was way off. And then the pencil is 10 grams. Okay, so we know that the pencil is lighter than the pen. And then the ruler is 30 grams. Ah, so it's heavier. Okay, so there you have it. And then it says, describe how your estimates compare to your measurements. Explain. So I would look at this and say my estimate for the paper clip was spot on. So that's awesome. The comparisons are very accurate. Like I knew that the 3-hole punch would be heavier than the stapler. I got those measurements wrong, but I still compared them correctly. Does that make sense? So I could write about that. I could say that which one was way off? Oh, my ruler. I would say my estimate for the ruler was way off, but that's okay. So just kind of talk about what you guessed. And then part B says, write the order of the objects from the least mass to the greatest mass. Okay, so I'm looking at this, and the lightest thing is the paper clip. Okay, so I'm going to start with the paper clip. Now, sometimes students would look at this and say, oh, start with the 3-hole punch and the paper clip, they're tied. Can you guess why they would think that it's tied? They both have 1, right? 1 kilogram, 1 gram. So you have to be very careful about the units. Don't just look at the number and think 1, oh, it's tiny. No, 1 kilogram is much heavier than 1 gram. So be very careful with that. Grams are smaller, remember, and then kilograms are big. So it goes paper clip, and then we have our eraser, then the pencil, then the pen. Oh wait, did I miss something? Oh wait, no I didn't. Pen, pencil, oh wait, no, pencil, pen, ruler, stapler, and 3-hole punch. Yay! Okay, the turn and tack is a really good question. It says, how do you know when to use grams and when to use kilograms when you measure the mass of an object? Okay, so if I were to measure a safety pin, that is a tiny, tiny, tiny thing. It does not have a lot of mass. And so I would not use a kilogram to measure. I would use a smaller unit. I would use a gram. It's kind of like when we did fractions, right? The size of the unit mattered, right? So, yeah. Okay, and then obviously with kilograms, we would use that to measure things that are bigger. Okay, number 2 on the next page, it says, a baker orders a basket of apples and a wooden spoon to make apple pies. Which unit would be better for measuring the mass of each object? So we have the basket of apples compared to the wooden spoon. Think about objects you know, a textbook and a paper clip. Okay, use these objects as benchmarks for mass. So a benchmark is a really important thing. In fact, I want you to circle that word benchmark. Now, these are just kind of clues that you're going to use in your head, and you're going to base your estimates and your guesses, your logical reasoning off of these benchmarks. So you know in your head that a paper clip is 1 gram. So everything you measure is going to be based off of that, of the fact that a paper clip is 1 gram. So if I'm saying, okay, I know a paper clip is 1 gram, so my packet of gum is going to be 15 grams because it's heavier than a paper clip, but not too much heavier. Does that make sense? That's kind of like what I'm judging everything off of. And then your textbook is about 1 kilogram. So a textbook is much, much, much heavier than your paper clip. And so when you have heavy objects and you feel it, you're like, gosh, this almost feels like a textbook. You would use kilograms to measure that. So those are your benchmarks. That's what you judge everything off of. Okay, part B says, estimate which benchmark's mass is closer to the mass of the basket of apples. Then write grams or kilograms. So measure the mass of the basket of apples using, what are we going to use, grams or kilograms? Imagine a basket of apples, pretty heavy, right? So it would make sense for us to use kilograms. So that's what you'll write, kilograms. Part C says, estimate which benchmark's mass is closer to the mass of the wooden spoon. Then write grams or kilograms. You would measure the mass of the wooden spoon using, okay, think of a spoon, a pen, you know, those are the same like weight and feel. You would use grams. Okay, so see how this lesson is just kind of like getting you to understand mass and grams and kilograms and knowing your benchmarks and just basically being a good logical reasoner, a person who is good at reasoning. So yeah, pretty simple, and that was pretty much the same thing yesterday too. So just keep doing your best, and if you don't get it right away, that's okay. Just keep trying, and yeah, you'll get it. We're really just kind of becoming familiar with all of this. All right, let's do the check understanding. It says, list these objects in order from the least mass to the greatest mass. So smallest to biggest. Orange, sneaker, marker. Okay, out of all of those items, orange, sneaker, marker, the marker is probably going to be the smallest, right? Like this pen. Marker is going to be the lightest. The orange is probably going to be next because it's like an apple, right? And then the heaviest item would be a sneaker. I guess that depends if it's like a little baby sneaker or like an adult sneaker. But we can assume that it's a big sneaker. Okay, then the next one, it says, choose the unit you would use to measure the mass, right? Grams or kilograms? Are we going to use grams to measure this item or kilograms to measure this item? Number 2, a box of crayons. A box of crayons isn't too heavy, so I would say grams. Okay, and then a packed backpack. You guys remember, your backpacks were full. Sometimes I didn't know what they were full of, but they were so heavy. So we would probably use kilograms to measure a packed backpack. And then a banana, okay, so another fruit. We, on the lighter side, so we would use grams. So number 2, grams. Number 3, kilograms. Number 4, grams. All right, awesome job. Last page. It says, Thomas is comparing the masses of 4 different toys. He already knows that the bag of marbles has the greatest mass. So I'm going to circle that. Bag of marbles has the greatest mass. He wants to order his toys from greatest mass to least mass. The mass of the cube puzzle is blank than the mass of the yo-yo. Okay, so let's look at this this pan scale. It's doing the work for us. So nice. So the mass of the cube puzzle is blank than the mass of the yo-yo. Well, if it's down like that, it's sitting down, it's because the other object can't weigh it down. It can't match it. So the cube is heavier than the yo-yo. Oh, it wants us to say greater than or less than. Whew, gotta read the directions, Miss Lundquist. Greater than. I was gonna say heavier, but wants me to say greater than. The mass of the cube puzzle is blank than the mass of the football. Okay, so now the cube is higher and the football is heavier. It's weighing down more. So the mass of the cube puzzle is less than the mass of the football. Okay, so now we know all of these things. We have our 4 objects, the bag of marbles, the cube, the yo-yo, and the football. We know that the heaviest thing is the bag of marbles, and it wants us to list the toys in order from greatest to least. So I already know that the bag of marbles is the greatest, so that starts. And then what is the next heaviest object? Well, the cube is heavier than the yo-yo, but it was not heavier than the football. So the football was heavier than the cube, which means the football is also heavier than the yo-yo. So the next one would be football, then it would be cube, then it would be yo-yo. All right, then choose the unit you would use to measure the mass, right? Grams or kilograms. A melon, another fruit, but a much heavier fruit. So we would probably use kilograms. It's bigger, it's heavier. kilograms. And then a cell phone, some cell phones can be pretty heavy, but I would say typically you would use grams. They're not as heavy as like a melon. And then number 8, a keychain. Keychains can sometimes be heavy too, but this one looks like it only has 3 keys on it, so probably not that heavy, so you would use grams. So, okay. The learning mindset says, do I understand how to estimate and measure mass? What do I still need to work on? So I think that we did really great on estimating. Maybe one thing that we want to work on is doing the actual measuring and using an actual scale. So if you have one around the house, you could practice measuring things. But yeah, this lesson, really we just want to get you guys to know the difference between grams and kilograms, when to use what, and having your benchmark so that you can estimate appropriately. So I hope this went okay. Let me know if you need anything, and good luck on your homework. Love your guts. Bye.